When we imagine a forest, it's often as an expansive green area with trees and birds and animals. And within this environment are a whole host of organisms in the soil. But a forest is changing. Forests are becoming increasingly technologized. They're turning into plantations for storing carbon. They're becoming biodiversity reserves for biodiversity credits. And this transformation is to address the problem of climate change, a key issue of our time. Smart Forests is a research project that investigates this increasing use of technology, especially digital technology, for monitoring and managing these environments. We're particularly interested in the intersections of environment, society, and technology. So we're thinking about how digital technologies could change people's relationships to environments, how this could change forms of governance, how it could create different value structures for how forests are differently monitored, managed, and even transformed.
In the last few years, there has been a very rapid increase in the use of digital technologies in forest governance. And the project is trying to kind of uncover the socio-political implications of these technologies.
What are the ways in which we are looking at forests with different kinds of sensors now? Or what happens when we have increasing amounts of data from these different sensors and technologies? How are these being brought together in all kinds of digital infrastructures and databases? Who gets access to these technologies? Who is using them? Who is performing the labor of measuring and monitoring forests?
It's also raising questions about who can access the data. People who live with the real forest and then people who live with the digital forest. So there are companies from the global north, they buy data or a specific product that is being produced through the datafications of forests from the global south.
These technologies are being used to monitor forests, quantify forests, map forests, and basically produce knowledge on forests. Could be anything from drones to camera traps to satellite images to LiDAR sensors to acoustic monitoring technologies. What we are trying to do at Smart Forests is trying to qualitatively analyze what these technologies are actually doing. So how does it affect stakeholders, animals, local communities, and indigenous peoples?
So the research design is to really look at forest environments around the world and see how they might be similarly or differently affected by digital technologies. In the first part of the project, we've taken a global scan of different forest technologies to look at how they're being used across the world. And to capture that research, we created a Smart Forest Atlas where we've logged and created radio episodes.
Welcome to Smart Forests Radio.
And a whole host of documentation of our research. Then on the basis of that global scan, we selected initially 4 case studies to do more in-depth research and to create field schools and different kinds of participatory workshops to investigate these technologies. So we've worked in an eco-village in the south of the Netherlands. We've also worked in Indonesia with a community there looking especially at carbon credits, with a community in India looking at participatory mapping technologies, and then in Chile looking especially at wildfires and wildfire technologies, which is a rapidly emerging area called fire tech. With the Chile wildfire case study, initially what we found is that there already are really strong community infrastructures for addressing fire, but they're not necessarily joined up or organized in a way that they can be learning from each other.
La conversación que se dio fue bastante interesante porque se vieron estas dos perspectivas, digamos, de el fuego como algo bueno o el fuego como algo malo, y llegamos a una conclusión en que en realidad el fuego es un ente y creo que el ser humano es el que le da ese valor.
Lo más importante es que la sociedad sepa que existen los entornos forestales. Hay personas todavía en la ciudad de Santiago que no saben que tienen bosques alrededor de la ciudad.
He hablado sobre mis investigaciones, fuego como elemento originario y cómo se vincula con comunidades y con los saberes ancestrales desde el pueblo mapuche.
Aquí el fuego se presenta como un ente, una criatura. Principalmente creo que falta construir un lazo con ese conocimiento y entender qué es el fuego.
This project has allowed us to kind of look into a deeper aspect of forest fires and thinking about how we can create research related to fire.
Todo lo que tiene que ver con incendios forestales, al menos en Chile, son conocimientos muy colaborativos. Entender qué especie es más inflamable que otra nos puede ayudar a tal vez construir mejor el territorio.
The main topics we addressed today in the field school in La Araucanía and Tubulco were about fire prevention plans, networks, practices, and technologies. So we looked at existing fire practices and networks that help to address both preventing and managing fires, as well as the technologies that were used.
Como mi labor de guardaparques, trabajo con diferentes tecnologías respecto a los bosques. Una de nuestras principales amenazas es los incendios forestales, por tanto vamos recolectando información que nos permite adecuar nuestros planes. Hemos estado buscando modelos de gobernanza, ya sea con las comunidades mapuche del territorio o con la sociedad civil a través de consejos consultivos, y con ellos lo que buscamos es incorporar su visión.
En el sector de Aculeo y Cantillana tenemos unos 7 años de experiencia implementando medidas de prevención, y las tecnologías que hemos aplicado nosotros hoy día son principalmente nuestras cámaras de vigilancia. El objetivo es la detección temprana de focos de incendio u otras amenazas. Nosotros vemos que cobra importancia las redes sociales, donde muchas veces las alertas pasan primero por esos lugares, a veces hasta antes de llegar a bomberos.
These are all problems that will continue to need community input and intervention, and we don't see the sort of end of the research project as the end of the issue. So we are hoping to design the work as something that can continue to grow and be a resource for people.
For the Smart Forest project, I investigate how the forest in Indonesia is being quantified and then transformed into carbon credits.
Ya, Bujang Raba itu satu landscape yang berada di hutan lindung Bukit Panjang Rantau Bayur, di mana ada 5 hutan desa, masyarakat yang mengelola kawasan hutan.
There are different types of carbon project. So sometimes there's a big companies that approach the community, and then sometimes it's community-led. The Indonesian governments, they have the new regulation. So the community find it difficult to fulfill this requirement.
Untuk menyederhanakan bahasa-bahasa ini dari akademik ke bahasa yang masyarakat itu lumayan butuh proses pembelajaran.
So for the research, we already conducted like field school, where we invite the forest patrols and also like the forest units in the village level.
Nah, dalam hal pelaksanaan patroli itu, tim patroli banyak hal yang dilakukan di dalam kawasan itu. Pertama adalah menyelidiki kerusakan lahan hutan lindung, dan situ mencatat berapa penemuan-penemuan. Salah satunya adalah kayu besar, kemudian hewan-hewan, dan buah-buahan HBK yang bisa dimanfaatkan, dan itu harus
People go into the forest, they use like a software called Avenza Map to do like mapping and also like GPS.
Ini zona lindung, yang ini zona pemanfaatan. Posisi kita sekarang ada di sini.
Pekerjaan survei karbon tidak hanya survei karbon atau pengukuran kayunya saja, tapi kami juga mengamati hal-hal lain seperti binatang atau keadaan alamnya.
Sebelum masuk hutan, kami mengambilkan daun untuk memasang di kuping, karena kita tuh supaya kita tuh jangan kemasukan setan.
Currently, they rely on rubber and also like palm oil plantations. So by having this like carbon project, they maintain their forest rather than transforming it into palm oil plantations.
Apabila nanti 10 tahun ke depan kami berpikir zona pemanfaatan dan zona inti itu akan dipisahkan nanti. karena ada tuntutan ekonomi masyarakat di sana. Nah, kalau seandainya itu terjadi, zona pemanfaatan yang sudah ditanam sawit, maka selanjutnya cuaca pun tidak menentu dan banjir itu pasti terjadi.
Khawatirnya kami selaku pengelola hutan desa, kami tidak lagi menerima daripada dana karbon. Sedangkan selama ini kami menerima daripada dana karbon, dan itulah salah satu penyemangat terbesar dari masyarakat, sehingga tidak ada lagi kontra.
It's very important for the community to have their own kind of like system where they can propose their own carbon project, and then to be able to do that, it's very important for them to get access to the consultancy and also like the ownership of the data and also the type of knowledge that they need to own the carbon project.
The Netherlands is a very densely populated country. There's a lot of urbanized space. At the same time, it's one of the biggest exporters of agricultural product. The discussion around biodiversity is really intense at the moment. Biodiversity is declining quite rapidly. The EU court has enforced the Netherlands to lower their nitrogen levels. People are getting into conflict about how we need to use the small amount of land that is available here. Within the Smart Forest project, I'm focusing on a case study that involves the ways that digital technologies are monitoring and measuring biodiversity. And I work together with an eco-village and living lab site. And these people have a biodiversity plan for their local environment.
I founded a project of 36 houses that have a very high ambition on energy, water, and circular building. Bio-based building. We want to have a positive impact on everything, and our natural environment is a very important part of that. We help also animals and insects to be comfortable here.
Here at the Eco-Village Buko, we are hosting an event where we invited people from the local community in the Eco-Village, as well as external parties who are working on digital technologies to measure and monitor biodiversity.
We've gathered experts, and we wanted them to think together with us, with eco-villagers, how to improve our biodiversity in a way that our eco-village can become part of the natural conservation area in the Netherlands. Because I think that humans can have a positive impact on their natural surroundings, and we want to prove that here.
There are people in the room who know a lot about eco-villages, who have practical but also more theoretical knowledge about that. There are people in the room who know a lot about digital infrastructures and software, how humans relate to nature and what is needed in the future to move away from more extractivist relations.
The group is very open, sharing the experiences, sharing how it works, sharing the successes, and inviting somebody like me in to also share what I'm doing and where the linkages are, what we can learn from each other.
So when I live somewhere, I can create biodiversity, maybe even more biodiversity than creating a forest. I love to embrace new data, new systems, new techniques, but the techniques are coming up and we can use it. But it's only a mean, not a goal in itself.
Based on my own experience in a sustainable living community, inclusion of other species as well can also be thought about or considered. And also now the day was about the digital measurements and how you can do that.
Over the last year, together we've been collecting a lot of data about the local biodiversity. I've also been interviewing and working with people who are developing new kinds of technologies to measure and monitor biodiversity.
We are just starting to build up new nature by planting good stuff that is belonging here, and it's good for the insects, good for the soil, so we have to build it up. But of course it's not helping when 1-2 meters further there is a farmer using pesticides.
There are some kind of plants I haven't seen it in my life and in my country. So I try to get some knowledge about it, sometimes using some applications.
What we found in the research is that the way that these technologies are developed, they start to look overwhelmingly at identifying species as a way to understand biodiversity. But with this local community, we started looking at how we can broaden this, like what else is involved in understanding biodiversity. What's most important is that the way that we develop these technologies in the future can integrate much more broadly what biodiversity actually is.
As part of the Smart Forest Research Project, I'm responsible for the case study in India. I'm working with this indigenous community called the Van Gujars on how they're using digital technologies, mapping their forest right. The Van Gujars are a semi-nomadic pastoralist community, completely dependent on grazing cattle, mostly buffaloes, in the forests of northern India. Their main livelihood is milk production from their buffaloes. Van Gujars have been systematically displaced and evicted out of forest environments. What the Van Gujars are trying to do now is trying to tap into a landmark Indian law called the Forest Rights Act, which aims to give land rights back to indigenous communities. And one of the processes of the Forest Rights Act is to do substantive mapping of the land rights where Van Gujars existed previously.
ये पूर्वी नहर है, ये कठियारी का पुल है, इसे कठियारी का बॉर्डर भी बोलते हैं, और ये कठियारी को रास्ता आ रहा है इधर साइड जिधर से आप आए हैं अभी, ये वाला रास्ता है, और ये प्लांट स्टेशन है. प्लांट स्टेशन इसके चारों तरफ टीका के कांटे लगे हुए हैं.
Earlier, communities would only rely on hand-drawn maps and visual interpretations of their space to make these claims. But with the advent of digital technologies, communities have started using tech-like drones and satellite imageries and GPS systems to make a claim for these land rights.
देखो जी, नक्शे हिसाब से अब तो बहुत चीज़ ऐसी निकली हुई है ना कि जहाँ जहाँ गुजरों को फ्रंट देते थे, है ना, गूगल नेट से पता लग जाएगा, है ना, और वो नाप नेट क्या है उससे पता लग जाएगा कब से यहाँ गुजर थे, कब से रहते थे, है ना, सारी चीज़ों को पता लग जाएगा. जगह हम बता देंगे ये जगह हमारी है ना.
कैमरा होना ज़रूरी है उसके लिए ना.
मेरे को ना कैमरा नहीं, मैं वो करता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे आ गया एक्चुअली वो प्रोग्राम इससे नहीं है. अच्छा, ऐसे चलाने मैं चला लूँगा आराम से.
लेकिन वो सिर्फ चलाने की बात नहीं है, इसमें हम इसमें कि आप क्या क्या इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयर करोगे, है ना. As part of the case study, we've done multiple workshops. We did a workshop on mapping, we did a workshop on visual participative hand-drawn maps, and then we did a workshop on actual going into the forest and doing mapping themselves, and then compared how these things changed. तक हम गाड़ी से गए, फिर वहाँ से वापस 5 किलोमीटर कहीं उड़े. तो वैसे ही आपका जितना भी जंगल का क्षेत्र है जहाँ पर आप अपने गाय मवेशी को ले जाते हैं, जहाँ पर भी आपको लगता है कि यार हम जैसे दावे जब डालने हैं कम्युनिटी फॉरेस्ट राइट्स के लिए, तब हम वैसे ही कर के जाते हैं, चल के भी जा सकते हैं, फिर वहाँ से उड़ा कर देख सकते हैं कि हमारा ये होता था, हमारा ये होता था.
दलदल सा है यहाँ में. अपने सारे बच्चों को लेकर गए थे हम लोग. हमने यहाँ पर ये बेर खाए थे. यहाँ पर हम कूद के खेले थे क्योंकि ये दलदल है, इसलिए ऐसे में खेलने में अच्छा लगता है. तो ये दलदल है, ये वाला एरिया.
I would argue that the Van Gujars have used digital technologies in ways in which they couldn't before, by producing new forms of knowledges which are making the claims to their Forest Rights Act even stronger, and also kind of fostering environment of collaborative work and activity within the young of the community.
बहुत बढ़िया और सबसे अच्छी जगह कौन सी?
मैदान. खेलने
का मैदान. हाँ, क्यों खेलने का मैदान क्यों सबसे बढ़िया है?
सब खेलते हैं.
और जंगल में?
जंगल में ना हाथ में मार देता है.
हाथ में मार देता है. ठीक है, तो जंगल नहीं जाते हो?
So the cases are very different, but they also have similarities in the ways that they raise concerns about power and politics in forest environments, in terms of how technology could lead to shifts in those relationships. What we hope the contribution of smart forests can be to the broader topic of environment, society, and digital technologies is to create a set of evidence and a series of proposals for how communities can really be at the heart of understanding and creating digital technologies, digital infrastructures, and forest environments that are livable, flourishing, and just worlds. So we're looking at how to realize this through a series of outputs in the form of our Smart Forest Atlas, which gathers together materials and findings for greater accessibility. We're creating a community-led forest technology policy report, which we will co-design with policymakers and regulators, as well as community groups for broader use. We will have a 5th case study also that we're developing now in the UK on restoration and regeneration technologies. And then within each case study, we've also developed various resources and contributions to ongoing community projects and plans to create more democratic engagements with environmental change.